The greatest show on turf just arrived in Boulder. Extensions being thrown around, offensive line coaches being hired. A lot of big time movement happened for the Buffs. We're going to talk about it. Roll the intro and let's get into it, baby. Come on. Come on. Happy Friday. Good to see all of your beautiful faces here. Be sure to smash the like button and subscribe. And of course, this show is brought to you by BetUS. In the wee hours of the night, once again, Coach Prime likes to move when we're all laying our head to rest. Marshall Faulk gets the call. This was reported a few weeks ago, and it was around that time when it was about Coach Prime, if he's going to be a head coach for the Raiders and the Raiders and the Cowboys. And I was like, this is just one more thing that it felt like it was just madness. But now it is true. It is locked in. His first coaching tenure being Marshall Faulk, the running back coach for the Buffs. And I think we can all agree that the running back room has had some explosive talent, but it just really hasn't flourished to be what it should be, what it needs to be. And now transitioning into this next year, whether it's going to be Caden Salter or Juju Lewis, right? You want to have a healthy running back room. The load that Shador had to carry on his back last year just isn't sustainable throughout, continuously on. You had a lot that you were able to trust Shador, and that was fantastic, but you got to get this running back room up and running so you can flourish on all sides of the ball. And Marshall Faulk, again, although not much coaching experience, obviously one of the greatest in the game, knows how to do this left and right. And if you can do it, you can teach it. So really excited for this hire. Again, another big NFL presence. Somebody that, again, I think that he can have for quite some time. We're talking about just kind of coaching movement in general. We're going to talk about Robert Livingston getting an extension, why that was important. And, of course, the hire on the offensive line coach, my thoughts and opinions on that. But love this hire for the Buffs. I think wherever they were, all you can do is go up for that running back room. And, again, you think about it, I know a lot of us know who Marshall Faulk is and understand what he did for the game, but how much do these kids know about Marshall Faulk? We'll see how that transitions into recruiting, but one Google search, one watch of the film, and you'll realize that this guy's got it going on, which I think will translate and should translate to the recruiting asset alongside the transfer portal movement as well. So big time pickup for the Buffs. Love it in this off-season movement for them. Now, next order of business was Robert Livingston has now become the highest paid assistant coach in Colorado football history with a new 2-year deal contract, I think worth like $1.5 million, was getting paid, I think, $500,000 or $600,000. And look, here's what happened, right? But it was getting a lot of knocks on the door to go elsewhere. And this is, we talk about the transfer portal and keeping players locked in and that battle of not losing guys, of being tampered. Coaching is the same thing, man. It's not as sexy maybe as it is for the player aspect of it, but it happens. And I got to tell you, man, if you're constantly having to rotate, that's tough. You want to try to keep a base as best as possible. And look, these guys, just like players, are trying to make opportunities. It's all business for them. If they strike hot and somebody sees like, hey, this guy's up and coming, we can get him at a great deal and move him up. That's what's going to happen. So kudos to the Buffs for locking him in for 2 more years and working that contract out, because there were rumors that other colleges and NFL were looking to rip him away after that early success that he had in Colorado. So you want to be able to have some sustainability going into next season. You don't want to keep rotating every single year. And that's something that Prime has had to deal with on top of, obviously already having transitions in the transfer portal, moving coaches. Of course, offensive line coach, there hasn't really been any sustainability there. That's huge on development, and just more so on development more than play calling. And so now we're Buffs headed into this next year, still have same offensive coordinator and now same defensive coordinator, making some upgrades. And again, with Marshall Faulk, making some movements on the offensive line, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. But love this extension. Thought he did a phenomenal job last year. Really excited what he's going to be able to do with another full year under his belt. Some guys that he helped recruit, brought into the fold. We'll see how it pays dividends for the Buffs. There was a little thing that I was going to talk about, but I feel like I'm going to take the bait and I don't want to talk about it. But let's do this real quick. Of course, the show's brought to you by BetUS. And when you go to betus.com right now, use the code YouTube150, get back 150% on your first deposit, then $125 on your next two, up to $2,000 when you make that deposit. Look, although the Buff season's far, far away, we know what's coming up on Sunday, big time Super Bowl, and you can still hop in on that early action on that over-under for total wins of the season. How you feeling about this schedule? I like it a lot. The away teams, look, Utah scared me at one point. They don't really have that, scariness to me anymore. Kansas State and West Virginia. West Virginia is always hard to play at. I think they're just a really well-rounded football team. Should have been a lot better this past year. That'll be a fun game. But Kansas State, honestly, is the only one that I feel like that's going to be a challenging one on the road. At home, I'm loving it. Arizona State, we know what they did last year. I think they're going to take a little bit of a step back, but everyone's kind of making some moves. That'll be a great game. Arizona, I don't think it will be as tough. Iowa State, another big game. BYU, another big one. Nice little rematch there. Then you've got Wyoming. I don't know who the little bird is. Is it South Dakota State? It looks like it might be. And then Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech had a phenomenal year last year for Georgia Tech, and they recruited very well. So a lot of great slate of games, especially at home. Majority at home this year for the Buffs, which is exciting as well. Going to be much watch TV. And of course, in July, they're moving over to, which I've talked about, that rev share. And the Buffs are going to carry a lot of rev share heading into July for them. So let's talk. I don't want to bring up, there's a scout thing that got brought up, and I saved it to talk about it. But it's one of those things that it's just going to get me riled up for no reason, where reportedly, and how true is this? That's what I don't know either. But an NFL scout has one red flag for Travis Hunter, says lacks technique in some areas and relies on athleticism too much at times, which won't slide in the NFL. I kind of read that and got hot, and I just feel like there's always, and again, it's not really that bad of criticism, so I kind of took a step back, took a little bit of a woo-saw. I guess I get defensive of Travis Hunter. I feel like he's always kind of fighting this uphill battle of unnecessary, like it's not even necessary. One of the most just loving, genuine guys out there, just goes out there and plays hard and just takes just shots constantly. So when I see this stuff, it just irritates me. And these NFL scouts, I don't think they got a clue, to be honest with you, at times. And who am I to say this? But I genuinely feel the ego of these NFL scouts. They don't watch the games like we as fans do. We have a better, I would say, assumption or an understanding of these players coming from college at times than these scouts do. These scouts look at things differently than we do, and we're wrong too. So I'm not saying that. But to say that he just leans on athleticism, I've got a handful of players that I can think of that lean on athleticism. Joe Milton is one of them. Anthony Richardson, another one, a quarterback for the Colts. Cam Ward relies heavily on athleticism. I think he's developing the other asset of the game. Caleb Williams is another one that relied heavily on athleticism. I think that's why he struggled that first year. Nobody wants to talk about that. He was a generational quarterback. I didn't think that he was. So that's where I was going to go on my tangent. I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit. But let's move back to this. Gunnar White has been promoted to offensive line coach. I know there's a lot of rumors of who it was going to be and things like that. The reason why I do like this coach, somebody that's been, or higher, has been with Coach Prime, going back to the Jackson State days. Again, what I just mentioned, you keep having a rotation as offensive line coaching, right? It's hard to have any development. It's really hard to be able to pull somebody in because you don't know who's going to take that role. This promotion feels like it's a long-term promotion. Hey, we've been with us for quite some time. He's done a great job being an analyst, has been part of these guys, and has been this, I would say a stable, even with all these offensive line coaches rotating in and out. He's always been there. So, it's maybe not the flashiest or the sexiest hire that you would look for, but I think there's a bigger reason to it. And I think a lot of it is, hey, we need some stability here. We need to be able to roll in the next couple of years where I'm not having to worry about finding an offensive line coach every 6 months. And that's kind of the rotation that it's been. And look, it's tough. That's just the way of, like I just said, you kind of got to get these guys on an extension as quickly as you can. If not, a bigger fish is going to come in and take a bite. There's always a bigger fish, no matter who you are. There's always a bigger one swimming around. So give me your thoughts and opinions on all these hires. I mean, you got the extension of Livingston, the hire of Faulk, the hire of Coach White, all those things, all big movements here for the Buffs, all things that were needed. I believe as well. And I think all great movements into the right direction as we head into the spring game. I am excited to see if there's going to be any pressures with Coach Prime, because there was that noise from Matt Rule talking about tampering and possibly canceling the spring game. Would love for someone to tee that up for Coach Prime to get his response on that, whether he takes the road of kind of throwing Nebraska and Matt Rule saying, if you can't handle the smoke, don't get in the kitchen kind of mentality, or if he kind of doubles down and goes, yeah, it's an issue, and we're considering it too. I think there's multiple assets that you can argue, but I believe, just from watching how successful the spring game has been for the Buffs the last 2 years, no way that you get away from that. No way that you get away from that. Matt Rule, I think it's just whining like a little bee like he always is, but we'll see. You guys smash the like button, subscribe. Of course, show is brought to you by BetUS. Thoughts and comments down below. We'll see you on the next one. Peace and love, baby.